All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I am so excited to share with you this very, very exciting panel of experts that are going to share their story with us today and talk about how they've built some amazing, amazing businesses. Let me start by introducing this amazing panel that we have. First, Fran Dunaway, who's the CEO of Tomboy X. And I'm just so delighted to have her on because I can remember when she presented her company some few years ago at a pitch competition called Women's Founders Network. But let me tell you a bit about her company first. Tomboy X is an innovative online underwear company that is disrupting the $16 billion industry by focusing specifically on fit, quality, and function. The Tomboy X brand is about inclusivity, body positivity, and empowerment. Fran and her wife, Naomi Gonzalez, co-founded the company and in 2014 introduced the first boxer brief designed for women. The company has continued to grow and as recently closed their Series A funding, which is an amazing feat for a woman-led, especially an underrepresented woman to achieve that feat. So congrats to you, Fran. But let me tell you a bit more about her entrepreneurial journey. Before she took the leap into entrepreneurialism, Fran was a partner in a media strategy firm and executive produced video ads for political campaigns and candidates nationwide. She managed a bi-coastal team of 15 editors and producers and gained a reputation as the fastest in business, often shooting, editing, and shipping ads within 24 hours. The team would ship over 600 ads a season. In addition to all of this, Fran's volunteer work has included the participation in the first human rights campaign steering community in Seattle. And she co-chaired the annual Human Rights Dinner for 3 years, doubling revenues as well as each consecutive years. Fran is at the helm of the Equal Rights Washington, which is an anti-discrimination bill that added LGBT protections and is involved in various campaigns, including marriage equality and the legalization of marijuana in both US and Uruguay. So welcome, Fran, to our panel here. And I'm also going to introduce our second panelist, and that is Dr. Kristen Hale. She is the CEO and founder of Navigate HCR. Dr. Kristen Hale is a full service, her company, Navigate HCR, is a full service ACA and compliance technology agency. Her team of HR and compliance experts is responsible for assisting brokers and employers with the complex requirements of the law. Dr. K is a certified healthcare reform specialist and represents the NHCR in industry-related seminars and summits to ensure her company is updated in the most intricate details of the ACA and industry trends. Dr. K has a significant amount of experience and knowledge in all things compliance and reporting, and she is the broker for. She was a broker for over 20 years and is the first doctor to write on the ACA and compliance complexities. In 2014 and 16, she was awarded the most influential woman in benefits and by Employee Benefit Advisor. Dr. K is also has expertise in third-party administration as she previously owned one. She's passionate about her clients. Dr. K started a nonprofit called HEAL, Help Employers and Employees under the ACA legislation, which has served as lobbyist on the Hill. Dr. K holds a DBA from Agustin University, an MBA from University of Phoenix, and a BA from Pine Manor College. Prior to graduation from Pine Manor College, she was known for being the only female athlete at PMC to obtain a double-double. So welcome, Dr. K. And we're expecting our third speaker, and I know he's en route. So let me take this opportunity to introduce him. And as soon as he's on, we'll get a chance to hear from him as well. and that is Carlos Flores. And he is the CEO of Coronado Distributions. And a little bit about his background. He was born and raised in central Los Angeles, a single mother, hardworking, and integrity were instilled in him. And after graduating high school, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy and was quickly promoted to logistics specialist, a second class, and was in charge for all supplies and logistics for a ship. He quickly learned how to manage and order supplies for a ship, all while saving taxpayer dollars. Once Carlos completed his tour in the U.S. Navy, he went on into the business world and received his bachelor's degree in public administration with a minor in economics. At the same time, he started working for a defense contractor. While he got all that experience, he decided to launch the Coronado Distribution Company in 2011 to help serve the U.S. Navy and the community of National City. And Carlos has built Coronado Distribution to not only serve the government's needs, but also serve the community of the South Bay. He always strives to support local military families in the area of donating time, resources, and hiring of veterans. One of the things he's done and most proud of is, giving his money and time to feed holiday dinners in his community, as well as in the Philippines. His company has built a school in Africa, Uganda. I mean, he's done a number of amazing things. And for the past few years, his company has been on Inc. 5000. I'm delighted to recognize and have participation with this group because they've done an amazing thing. They took their areas of drive and interest and built each of them amazing businesses out of that. Let me just confirm. Carlos, are you on? Yes, he's on. He's muted though. All right, let me go through this process to. Carlos, are you on?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so let's jump into this. So we've talked a bit about your backgrounds and some about your education, but I'd love to hear from each one of you, starting with you, Fran, and next Carlos, and then Dr. K. What drove you to start a business?
Well, as the saying goes, we started this underwear company because I wanted a cool shirt. I actually wanted a beautiful button-down shirt like a Robert Graham or Ben Sherman that you can find in menswear, but made for a woman's body. So made with fine quality shirting and fun details around the collar and around the cuffs. But we chose the name Tomboy because we thought it was cute, and Tomboy Exchange became Tomboy X. And when we launched our Kickstarter campaign, I think because of my background in politics, we were able to recognize pretty quickly that the name was what was resonating. And so we started kind of kicking around this idea, wow, we may be onto something here that's likely bigger than the shirts. And this could be a real opportunity to build a brand. So suddenly we started thinking, well, it's this little side gig out of our one-car garage may have an opportunity that can kind of further our values around creating some positive change. And what better way to do it than a business? But we knew that what we needed to do was find a hero product, if you will, that would open up the brand to a much wider range of people, and also just started hearing from people that there was a real, not only white space for kind of the tomboy, but for comfortable underwear. And actually at the time we launched in 2014, September of 2014, we introduced the first boxer brief made specifically for a woman's body. We've pivoted more into gender neutral space because turns out we make really comfortable underwear that fits anybody. And so that's kind of been our trajectory. Now we offer a full line of underwear, everything from a bikini cut all the way to a 9-inch boxer. And we offer every style in extra small through 4X. So that was the piece that was very important to us in terms of our values. We wanted to be all inclusive.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. How about you, Carlos? What drove you to launch your business?
Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize for running a little bit late this morning to everybody that's on the listening right now. So my apologies for that. But I guess to answer your question was, I always felt in retrospect that I've been an entrepreneur, whether it was selling candy when I was a little kid or taking a job as soon as I could, and just kind of just learning how to work in a environment, a professional environment. So at a young age, I think I had that mentality. In my 20s, I knew I wanted to get something started because I didn't have much. I didn't have much responsibilities other than myself. So I figured as long as I have shelter and some kind of food, I'll survive. So I figured I wasn't married. I don't have kids. So if it doesn't work out, I'm the only one that's going to suffer, if you will. So I had that going on. In particular for this current business that I have, Coronado, is I used to be in the military and I seen the gap. I seen that the federal stock system, there's such a huge demand from multiple different end users, and all of them are important. I realized that the number one priority that the DoD, Department of Defense, have is really mission readiness. So they need to make sure that they're effective and ready to go do what they need to do at any moment's notice. So because of that, there's a lot of times units that get deployed on your schedule for some sort of deployment, and all of a sudden somebody else takes priority for whatever reasons that I'm not aware of. But what ends up happening to your supplies and stock system, it gets put in the back burner. Well, you had projected already that you were going to receive in by a certain date. Now you're not, and nobody tells you. It's crazy how it works. So I seen an opportunity that there was cracks in the federal stock system, the federal supply system, that I could possibly fix. I didn't know how. I just seen, hey, there's a gap here. When I was in my military service, I should have probably said that, but I used to be in the service, and that's kind of where I was a supply guy, and I seen some gaps. I didn't know how I was going to fix them. I just said, hey, man, that doesn't make sense. And then years later, after I got out the service, I used my GI Bill, and I was just going to school at the city college, at the JC, and then moved my way up to state. So I was using my GI Bill to kind of just find my ways of what I wanted to do. I was fortunate enough to work for a defense contractor and helping them get government contracts. They knew my background in supply, so they kind of they needed help in that department. So I was able to help them along the way. But I kind of had like this back of my mind idea of if I specifically focus on a niche market, which was Navy ships and supporting their deployment and their supply cycles, I kind of had like an opportunity. So I seen an opportunity, I seen a gap. I didn't know how I was gonna take advantage. Little by little, I started meeting people. I started just learning things without even realizing that I'm learning things. And I was able to, a few years, I believe about 3 years into working that company, to just start my own company that focuses on supporting these Navy ships. And from there, it kind of just began to grow, where I had a niche market, which I still do. And we started getting different type of requests. So I realized that what we were really delivering was convenience and filling in gaps. I was particularly focused on mil-spec type of products, but all of a sudden I started getting different requests. Then I was like, well, I can get that. So I was servicing their convenience and using it, providing that contract vehicle for them that they could utilize. So I think that's when it really started growing. After that, they started requesting services. So I looked into that and like, what would it require to do a contracted work on a military facility? So I looked at bonding and insurances, and I was like, well, that doesn't require much. Maybe if I partner up with the right people. And that's really been the key to the success, is just partnering up with the right people to just grow this business, and it's grown quite a bit.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. Dr. K, how about you? Please share with us, how did you go about launching your business where you are today?
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for having me today. So as you read in my bio, I was a healthcare consultant for 25 years. And so when the Affordable Care Act passed about 9 years ago, I decided to take one weekend and read it, like all Americans did, I'm sure, as well as our politics and believers of the Affordable Care Act. So I was working as a healthcare consultant. I saw the need to help employers under the employer mandate, which was part of the Affordable Care Act. But what I also did was I started my business as a side hustle. So I was already having another business, already working, going to school full time, and then decided that I wanted to start Navigate HCR. Navigate HCR ultimately started as a service and consulting firm. So we started really helping employers understand their requirements under the Affordable Care Act first and foremost. And then we transitioned to a software company about 2 years ago. Navigate's only about 4 years old. And so what we've done is we've really transitioned most of our manual skills and manual over to a software. And I've never owned a software company before. Navigate's my third company. So I owned a third-party administration company as well as an employee benefit firm where I was helping employers, usually employers that had about 50 or more employees, really decide how they were going to spend their healthcare dollars and looking at wellness plans and benefit plans and insurance plans in order to help those employers with that. So while I was getting my DBA, I read the Affordable Care Act, saw a big niche and saw a big need for employers because of the fact that their ultimate fines and fees under the Affordable Care Act, if not done correctly, could really cripple an American business and go to about $3 million in fines and fees that the IRS could ultimately assess that American employer. So that's how I started Navigate HCR.
Well, that's fantastic. What all of you, amazing stories. Jumping into a bit more of the meat of the conversation, that all of you, found an opportunity or had a specific need found an opportunity and then matched it with your specific area of exposure to that, and then, took it from there. I guess this will be another one of, you talked about the idea of where it launched. Would you, I would like to have you share just in the, in helping our audience today, where are you today? I mean, if you might share from a standpoint of size of your business today, customers, employees, revenues, what you're willing to share about, your journey to where you are today. If you might start with where we ended up, Dr. K, and then Fran, and then Carlos.
Sure. We have 4 locations. San Diego is our home because, of course, it's beautiful and sunny and 72 every day. So San Diego, we have a location. We also have a location in Columbus, Ohio. I'm an Ohio girl, so I thought it was important for me to give back to my home state. We've got employees in Pennsylvania as well as in Florida. So our employee headcount right now is sitting at 22 employees in 4 locations. And our company has been around for 3 years, and we went from 0 to our taxes for this year will be $4.9 million. And so we're on target to do 6 to 6.5 for the next year. And so that is with all of our customers in all the United States. We do business with all size employers in the United States, and we sit at about 6,000 clients.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Fran, how about you? Where do you sit today as far as your business statistics as far as?
Well, it's kind of astonishing to look back. It sounds like Kristen's grown very quickly as well, but we had no employees and we didn't go on payroll until August of 2015. And today we have 15 employees, and we hit 5.2 million in revenue last year. We will handily double that this year, if not triple. So that's kind of our goal. And this year is just focused on really growing the business, customer awareness, marketing. We haven't done much marketing until about 6 months ago. So we're rolling out all sorts of different initiatives. So it's pretty exciting. We've partnered with some very good strategic partners that are going to help us on our supply chain side, which is really where we start building efficiencies. And so that's what we're focused on.
That's great. And how about you, Carlos? Where are you today from a business statistics side?
So our fiscal year ends actually not in December, but August. So we're projected in book of business about 20 million. We have 70 employees, state of California, Utah, Colorado, and Washington. We have national contracts that we service our customers all over the United States, as well as Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Alaska, Japan, Afghanistan. So we distribute all over the world.
That's great. That's great. So you guys have talked about how you went from idea to your finding your specific niche markets and so forth. Interested to know, how did you finance your businesses? If you wouldn't mind going through, how did you finance your business? What type of capital have you obtained? If we could start with Carlos, then Fran, and then Dr. K.
Sure. So I knew, as I said, I wanted to start a business, and I didn't have friends that had money. I didn't know people that had money. So banks, I figured I was too much of a startup to even get a loan. So it was obviously an obstacle there. I looked at a couple of government assistance, such as PTech organizations that kind of help you get a business started, develop your business plan. So I looked into that, and although they can help you start a business, they can't give you money. So that was difficult there as well. So I had about $5,000 in my savings. So I just took that $5,000 and I went to market with that. I started a bank account, and it was really just hustle. I seen a YouTube video by Mark Cuban that kind of just said that you shouldn't start a business by taking loans. You should try to attract partners, and where if you don't have the money, then you need to be the person with the hustle, and where the other person has the money, they're just trying to invest their funds or whatnot. So that's how I pretty much got started. My investment was just $5,000 and going out there selling, and then learning how cash flow management works. I got paid, I got terms, and then it kind of just grew from there.
Very good. Thanks so much for sharing that. How about you, Fran? How did you finance your business, and what types of capital have you used?
Initially, when we were just making shirts, we bootstrapped the development of all of the prototypes. And once we had the fit and quality that we wanted, and we'd chosen fabrics for a few different colorways, we also had a couple of polos and a blazer. So we had bootstrapped the development of that just from savings. And then we decided, in order to pay for production, which we figured would cost about $70,000. So we ran a Kickstarter campaign. We set the goal for $75,000, and we raised in 30 days $76,000. So we said, okay, we can at least make these shirts. But we started pondering this notion of, gosh, there's such a white space around this brand. What should be the hero product? So and when we started making underwear, or we first thought, let's make the first boxer briefs, our challenge is that inventory, an e-commerce company especially that has inventory, requires a lot of capital. And if it's going to grow, it will continue to require capital. So had we stayed with the shirts and had it stayed a little side business, we likely could have just continued to bootstrap, sell them, put money in, and people would wait or whatever. But knowing that we had this other opportunity, we chose to jump into the arena of equity funding. Banks wouldn't come near us because we were far from cash flow positive or profitability, and we weren't willing to the risk that we were taking. We felt like didn't include the possibility of losing our home. So we didn't want to secure it with the home. So that was our first journey into fundraising. We actually were accepted into an accelerator program, which was awesome because I don't know if people are aware of the statistics, but at least in the venture capital and institutional money, only 2% of the billions of dollars that are invested yearly, only 2% go to female founders. So the odds were pretty high against us, and continue to be, but we've managed to maintain. And so when we started this accelerator program, we did a little raise prior to that from friends and family. And then the accelerator program, they took the lead on our Series Seed. It took us about 8 months to raise the money on that seed round, and which was just over $1 million, $1.2 million. And it ended up being 90% of our investors were female. There were a lot of people, a lot of angels. So these were all angel dollars, and a lot of the angels that weren't female just didn't understand what was wrong in the underwear market, and Victoria's Secret's awesome. So, trying to explain to them that nobody's making comfortable underwear for women wasn't really effective. Women got it, and so unfortunately, there aren't as many women investors, and women typically take longer to write checks that are smaller. But there are organizations that are out there helping women get more comfortable in the investing space, and with the premise being that we're not really going to have gender parity until we have gender parity in wealth. So there are a lot of companies or organizations, angel groups out there forming with female-focused founders thesis. So that's pretty exciting. So then we continued to grow and realized early last year that in order to continue to meet the demand, we would need to do another raise. And so at that time, we started looking for institutional money and went down the path with several different VCs, and ended up with a really good strategic partner that helped us raise. We actually bridged it with a convertible note, and then ended up raising, all told, about just over $2 million. And then we've got a second tranche coming in the next 60 days for another 2.5. So we're just really focused on growth and using that type of capital. We will be cash flow positive and profitable this year. So then we will certainly set up a line of credit with a bank, and hopefully be able to fuel our growth for quite some time by doing that.
Well, very good. Well, thanks so much for sharing that story. How about you, Dr. K? How did you finance your business, and what types of capital have you used?
Well, it's a great question. Certainly, as I mentioned, I was working full time, so I cashed out my 401k, I cashed out my savings, I sold jewelry. I think I sold everything in my clothes, purses, everything in my closet to start my business. And we did have initially 2 family friends that had loaned some money that obviously got paid back very quickly. And banks are obviously not a traditional lender, and as Fran has talked about, it's very challenging as a woman-owned business to get, or any business, to get some traditional money in general. So I funded it, bootstrapped it, worked multiple jobs in order to fund it. And then ultimately what ended up happening is when you start getting profits in, you certainly can go to a traditional bank and do lines of credit in order to hold you out for your, the times that your cash flow is maybe a little bit slower than others. And we have a cyclical cycle. So we're very busy at the beginning of the year and very busy at the end of the year. It's those summer months that we need sort of that bridge of some type of cash. So usually what we'll do is we'll have a line of credit of some sort from our traditional bank that will hopefully make sure that we're able to bridge that gap during those slower months. But really, it was funded and bootstrapped by my hard efforts. And just like Carlos said, it was all about hustle when it came down to the finances of the business.
That's great. And thanks so much for sharing that journey, because again, you guys are unique in that taking your idea and building them into multi-millions of revenue businesses that is deploying, your teams are, north of 20 folks. So, navigating the journey of, as you grew, and, some of you may not be aware of this, but less than 1% of the businesses that are $1 million and up are led by women and minorities. So you guys are really unique. And the types of strategies you've used to fund these businesses is also, definitely commendable, because again, it's single digits that have gone through and achieved what you've achieved. Interested to know, Fran, with how you've raised, equity financing, since this is your first business, how did you get coaching and support and expertise to help you along the way?
That's a really good point, because we certainly wouldn't be where we are today. If it hadn't been for a tremendous network of mentors and people that are really helpful. And from the beginning, we were able, actually through the Women Founders Network, we were able to connect with a mentor there, Deborah Benton, and she has been kind of our go-to when we get to the next area of questions. As I tell the team a lot, I have no answers. I just have a lot of questions. And so every step of the way, we literally went out and got books when Naomi famously said, "How hard can it be to start a clothing line?" So we went out and we got books. We didn't know a knit from a woven. We didn't know anything about this industry. And, as I mentioned, we weren't looking to get out of our cush jobs with perks and vacations and big paychecks. So this was just kind of a leap of faith, and not knowing what the challenges would be. Fortunately, we didn't know, so we just kind of kept going in. And so every time we'd hit an area of gray where we thought, I don't understand this, we would then tap into our network and say, does anyone know anyone who's ever set up a warehouse, for example? And this guy, David Little, appears in our life, and he was he ran operations for LL Bean and Tommy in Bahama, and he had all this experience and took us under his wing. He's still with us as an advisor. And so I think that what we did really well was just find the people that could answer the questions and point us in the right direction, who were positive and who were encouraging, and who were smart enough to only give us the tidbits that we needed to not overwhelm us. Because I think a lot of people will come in and just tell you where you can get to, and that wouldn't have been helpful. The questions that we were asking, which were very specific, is this is where we are today. What are the steps that we need to take to get us further down the path? Not even knowing. And then when we get to the next chapter, we'd open that chapter of the book and start looking for help around what that is. And so just growing it steadily and understanding it. I mean, I look back in awe to even a year ago, what I didn't know then and what I know today. And I'm sure that will be, I'll say, the same a year from now. So it is very important to find people that are willing to help and answer your questions.
Thanks for sharing that. How about you, Dr. K? What type of support network have you relied on with regards to mentors, coaches to help you grow your, zebra business to, own this niche market that you've got?
Well, much like Fran has done, I think I bought every dummy book there is about owning and starting a software company. So not actually knowing how to do that or how to run it, but as I mentioned, I had 2 other companies before that were in this space, but not knowing certainly about software in general. So relying on EO, I'm an EO member and certainly have a great foundation of peers there. I've also joined some other, women-owned businesses that may not be software-based, but certainly questions that I had, much like Fran had, where I could go to a peer network of women-owned businesses in order to help me. But ultimately, I think, really forming a group of advisors. So I formed early on a group of 6 advisors. Interesting enough, they're all men. So, and my dad actually is one of my advisors. And so I called them my navigators. And so what I do with my advisors is I spitball ideas, I spitball suggestions, things that I want to do, and run it by my team of advisors in order to decide if it's a good idea, a bad idea. They don't work for me. They don't get paid by me. So I think it's a little bit easier for them to say, no, Kristen, that idea is not so great, or yeah, that's a great idea. And so I think forming that board of advisors for me has been very beneficial.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Carlos, I'd like to understand, given the area of, I mean, you have a huge, customers that move, rather, it takes them a while to build that relationship. How have you leveraged, your network know-how and certifications to grow your business?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Oh, I just said that given that your customer is largely the government, both federal and local government and the Navy, and that they take a while to, build those relationships to grow your business. Can you give some insight as to what types of network and support and certifications you use to grow your business?
Sure. So I think no matter what you do, people are people, and we enjoy relationships. So I think building rapport with our clients is key to the success. A lot of these agencies have networking events. So we attend a lot of conferences and networking events throughout the United States. And then ask them just specific questions like, what do you guys need as far as what are some of the needs that they have? And is there a fit from what we do? If so, is there any certifications that we require, both as a veteran-owned company or minority-owned company, or even just ISO certification, and just kind of see what we can fit in, given our capabilities at the current moment. And if it's something that we can stretch ourselves and get that certification, then we'll do it. If it's something out of our scope, then obviously we'll say, okay, that's not in our comfort zone. That's not what we do. But it's really just a lot of networking and going out there and introducing ourselves. Obviously, we do marketing through online as well, but most of it's probably just that face-to-face, and it goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. And as you look at your business, I mean, all of you, again, are just congratulations with what you've achieved. What would you say, what was one of your biggest challenges that you had to overcome, and what did you do to overcome it? Starting with you, Dr. K, what was that when you think about where you are in your business?
Gosh, I think for me, my biggest challenge was really to understand the whole software dynamic. I did it wrong the first time. I outsourced it. I didn't control it. I wasn't able to design the software the way that I wanted it designed. And so I spent a lot of money, and that was a big mistake. And what I decided to do was ultimately bring that in-house and hire somebody who could help me with that, who had been in the software space, who was able to hire developers and really manage them. So I think for me, it was about really outsourcing it and bringing it in-house.
Okay. How about you, Fran? What was one of your biggest challenges, and how did you overcome it?
Oh my goodness. I think that probably just the whole fundraising piece has been, at least today, that looking back, that was a tremendous challenge of getting people who believe and see what we've got. And so, and not running out of money as a result. So that was a real kind of precarious dance of how do we not run out of inventory, because things were flying off the shelves, but we didn't have the capital to purchase more and also build this online, digitally native business. So that was always a tremendous challenge. And it was just the two of us up until August of 2015. So, I've said frequently, I had 2 jobs. One was not to run out of money, and one was not to screw it up. And then Naomi did everything else, because we were doing all the shipping, we were doing all the customer service, and not taking a paycheck. So we were also still trying to hustle side jobs, be it freelance or in whatever way we could. So that it was hard, and make no doubt about it, truly one of the most terrifying things I've ever done in my life. So it's been it was all very challenging, but ultimately incredibly rewarding.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. How about you, Carlos? What was the biggest challenge for you, and how did you how did you get help to have you overcome it?
I would say, I guess depends on what day of the month you're asking me for the biggest challenge. But I would say a few years ago when I started the business, I actually forgot to mention this. I started with a business partner, and we were just at two different stages of our life. I was in my mid-20s. He had just retired from the military, so he had his pension and income coming in already through different channels. So we were both passionate about the business and the idea. I was the guy with the idea. He was the guy with the network. He knew a lot of people that kind of just helped out as well. But I said a few years into it, we had tremendous success off the gates, which was good. But I don't know, about 4 years, 5 years into it, I said 4 years, I kind of lost passion of what I was doing and within the organization. I thought that we kind of accomplished the goals that we had at the time. And then it was just two different visions and directions of what we wanted within the organization and what we envisioned the company to be. So that was a big challenge of knowing, okay, what is it that the end game looks like? This individual wanted to keep it a $5 to $10 million company, something that we can control, 15 employees or so. I see that there's tremendous opportunity. So I felt a little bit of resentment that, okay, now I'm holding myself back because of this individual. And he felt, hey, why are you working so hard? We achieved what we wanted. And it was just knowing, okay, what was the end game and figuring out and developing that. Ultimately, we decided to split a business. He went his direction, I went with my direction. I kept this organization. Essentially, it was a bought out and bought him out. He moved forward. He's enjoying retirement. He's happy. I'm a lot happier now. I'm in a better state where I have the direction and control, full direction and control of the organization of what I think it could potentially do. And then I would say lastly, I would say even bigger challenge than that was probably finding my true purpose within the organization of what, not just what's our value prop, but what's my value prop to the people I'm around. And that's really, I see myself as a person that builds people, not necessarily businesses. The business is kind of like the byproduct of the day-to-day interactions I have with my coworkers here and our customers. And I think that was the biggest challenge to getting to this stage where I'm at today, where I have full clarity of what I want to achieve.
Thanks so much for sharing that. You guys brought up about, your teams and people and how you've built that. That segues to the next question. And that is, people are critical to your business success. And, the strategies you use to attract and retain, great talent is so important. You really have to have a high performing team. And sometimes that's difficult to do when you have constraint, capital and resources to do it. So I'd like to hear from each of you. What do you do to consistently have that, high performance, culture, values, to help you get to the next level? How about starting with you, Dr. K, and then Carlos, and then Fran?
So I think one of the things that I did with such rapid growth is I formed a great leadership team. I looked at my strengths and my weaknesses, and I found two number twos that have my weaknesses as their strengths. So one of them had been a past coworker, past friend of mine for 19 years. So one of her biggest strengths is accounting. And it's one that I don't really love or have a passion for, even though everybody says you're supposed to as a CEO, and I can honestly tell you I don't. And so what we did is we really formed that she became my vice president of operations. And so she handles the employee issues. She handles a lot of the accounting. We created dashboards so that when she sees me talking about cash flow and things along those lines, I have a dashboard where I can automatically look at it. I can see it, we can review it, and we can move on. And then I found, interesting enough, I found a lot of my employees when I had speaking events and speaking engagements. So my second number two was a panelist with me on a panel, gosh, about 3 years ago, and we were talking about the state of healthcare reform. And so I plucked her from a 20-year career because I think she saw the passion as well as the vision of the business, and really was looking at how she could, contribute as well as bring something different to her career that she was looking for. So, and then just following suit with my rest of my senior leaders, I think one thing that I do is we did all the strength finders. We realigned their jobs based on their skill set and realigned sort of their positions based on their skill set. But then we also empowered them. So one of the things that I always said I was never going to do when I became CEO was I was never going to say no to my employees. I may say, let's rethink this, or let's look at other options or alternatives, but I don't want to hinder my employees for them moving forward in their careers as well as what they want to do for business. So I've empowered my employees in order to make some decisions on the fly, financial decisions, client-based decisions, in order for them to be empowered based on not only their strengths, but based on the trust that I've formed in them.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. How about Carlos? Can you share what you've done to attract high-performance people?
So I just pretty much state what's our mission statement and our core values, which is employee empowerment, obviously finding solutions for our customers and making a difference in our community. And that's pretty powerful for the people that I've been able to attract. And by making a difference is building schools in Africa and helping homeless people, especially homeless vets down here in San Diego, Tijuana, with a couple of orphanages down there. So I think the reasons of why we're in business is probably key. The potential that they see within this organization is probably something else that attracts them as well. And just kind of like he had just mentioned not getting in their way and allowing them to grow in their career professionally. I have a very straightforward conversation with people like, hey, this might not be your destination of where you're going to end up your career-wise. If it is, that's great. If it's not, I want you to have an impact in here and not just be a footnote in the book that's written about our organization. I want you to write a chapter. And that's pretty much taking a sense of ownership of whatever it is that you're doing and building that type of mindset. And I think when we have conversations like that, it's been able to recruit people below the salary that they probably should be receiving at the present moment. But they see there's something bigger down the line, that they're if they work for a corporate 100 companies, because we had people in this organization that work in a corporate 100 organization, but they see the potential here, and they see that their impact is felt more than being somewhere else.
Oh, great. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. And then Fran, how about you? What has been your strategy for, recruiting and retaining top talent, even with, tight constraints?
Yeah, I think that I echo what both Kristen and Carlos have said, in that finding the right people. And I think that we had a couple of early lessons, which is just because you're passionate about the brand and the message, you still have to have a solid understanding of business and let that be kind of your guiding light. And if you want to grow the business, and the business is going to stay in business. So we have, and up until we did this raise, everyone was paid below a living wage in the Seattle area. So, and in fact, when we first raised money, everyone came on across the board at the same rate, which was really low for Seattle. So I'm happy to say with this raise, we were able to bring everybody up a little bit. But they have a passion for the brand, but also about a business. And I am not a details person. I cannot for the life of me figure out a pivot table in a spreadsheet, but I appreciate those that can. And like Kristen said, finding people that play to my weaknesses. I'm much more of a high level questioning person. And so I love detail people who can keep it simple for me. And that's kind of a good balance, because sometimes when you're so in the weeds, you can't rise above it and kind of see the bigger picture. And so that's where I'm helpful to the people that I need in the weeds doing that. So it's a nice balance, and everyone really has complete autonomy. And that's everything from, how you conduct your business, how you do your job, to we don't have any policies around vacation or sick leave or any of that. It's just if if you need some time off, talk to your co-workers and let us know if you're coming back. If you don't come back for a month, we may have replaced you, because somebody's got to do that job. But there's just not any real sense of structure around that. And so it takes a certain breed of people that are comfortable with that, and that's just the culture that we're building. And so we've got a really great team that's just kicking butt and taking names. So we're excited.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. Last question, and then I think we've got open up for a couple questions from our audience. You guys have built great companies. You've overcome a lot to get there. What do you see? Where do you want to take your business, and what's your exit plan? If you can just give me maybe 15 seconds each with regards to that question. I know it's a big one. But how about starting with you, Dr. K, and then Fran, and then Carlos?
Ultimately, the goal for me is to sell Navigate HCR. And so I think 2 to 3 years, that would be the goal to sell it. I'm writing my book, and so I'd love to have my book done this year. And I'm also a speaker, not only on subject matter, but speaking on women empowerment and how women can get their businesses to $1 million. So that's ultimately where I see I'm heading in the next 2 to 3 years.
Very cool. How about you, Fran?
Our plan is to get it to 50 million plus. Oops, sorry. Get it to 50 million plus in the next 3 years, and then acquisition.
Okay, very cool. And how about you, Carlos?
I would say to get it to about 300 million in annual revenues, and then acquisition as well.
All right. Well, I'd like to open it up to congratulations to all of you for what you've achieved. I mean, it's just amazing. We've got a couple of questions that would like to share with you. Let's see. We talked about, are any of the panelists what are any of you doing as far as being able to mentor some other folks? Do you guys do any mentoring of other entrepreneurs?
So I can jump in and answer that. I am on EO's Accelerator board, and Accelerator is for businesses that are under $1 million. So I run both an accountability group, I'm on the board, and then I mentor also a couple of females who I'm trying to get their businesses to $1 million. So I'm really sort of giving back in that under $1 million space.
Okay. The other question was, were there some specific startup resources that you may have utilized that were specific to your specific group, be it women, veterans? When you started up, did you take advantage of any of those types of resources?
I can ask. I did not initially. I kind of looked into it, but I was just so focused on solving a problem. That's where my focus lied. It was until after, and I believe that's what kind of helped the scale when I was able to actually network with other veteran-owned businesses and other organizations, that we got more exposure. But initially, it was just really just solving the problem and focusing on that. There was nothing else other than solving the problem for me.
All right.
I would echo that.
And last question. When you think about what you've done, okay, I've got one more. Let's see. If you could have done anything differently, what might you have done differently at the beginning, if you could have? Any of you are welcome to answer that question.
I would say for myself would probably be just have more accountability with certain individuals. I'm a pretty, excuse me, lax person to begin with, and sometimes people could take advantage of that. So as I matured in my role as a CEO, I was able to put more accountability, but initially there probably wasn't much. I felt that most people were going to work as hard as I was working. I was pretty naive that way. As for example, we have salespeople. They're pretty have a lot of autonomy to go out there. I trust that they were going to be, what do you call it, doing their job. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. We didn't have the proper measures to actually track what they were doing and what they should be doing. Accountability. It probably took us about a year and a half to 2 years of actually putting some kind of matrix and accountability. So that's the only thing I probably would have done differently, was just have more accountability to begin with, and not just in sales and anything. Now we have a lot of matrices that we could measure people where they can see that success, and not so much, hey, you're doing bad. It's more like, hey, this is where we need to get that to do good. This is what we both agree upon what good looks like. This is how we can get there. And it's more of a how do we get there together.
Okay. Well, thank you all again for joining and sharing your stories. And I would like to add to our audience a couple things. We do these subject matter expert webinars once a month. Generally, they're the last Friday of the month at 8 o'clock. And then additionally, Founders First, in partnership with Lift Development Enterprises, has 2 accelerators. One for those tiny companies that are 50 to 250,000 in annual revenues to help you develop the growth mindset. And then secondarily, we have our Founders Bootcamp, which is targeted to help those low 6 and low 7-figure businesses thrive and become much more scalable. So, the 250 to 2 million. So I invite you to visit our site at liftde.org or foundersfirstcapitalpartners.com to learn more. And thanks to everyone for joining me this Friday, and have a fantastic weekend.